Welcome you all for the SWAYAM course Animal Waste Management. Today module is Handling and Hazard of Animal Waste under the week 2, lecture number 3, Zoonotic Diseases. Myself, Dr. Anuradha Kumari, Assistant Professor in the Department of Livestock Production and Management, Faculty of Veterinary and Animal Sciences, Rajiv Gandhi South Campus, Barkacha. Today we were going to discuss how the animal waste work as an agent for zoonotic diseases under the following headings. What is the zoonotic diseases? Why the discussion on zoonotic disease is important? How the animal waste act as an agent for the transmission of zoonotic diseases. What are the different important diseases that is transmitted via the animal waste, mainly in context to our Indian condition? What are the different measures taken for the control of these diseases, and what are the different hotspot and its geographical distribution, and what are the future directive that should be used to control the transmission of these different diseases. So we were going to start with the introduction of the livestock waste produced in India. As per the last livestock census, that we have the maximum livestock population in country, and we about 535 million livestock is with us. That is the largest among the world. It is estimated that over 500 million ton of livestock waste is produced if we consider the bovine population only. This livestock waste is very useful resources if managed properly. If not managed, it becomes an important environmental issue, lead to water pollution, soil pollution, and also the environmental pollution by the release of the greenhouse gas, that is methane. Out of the total livestock waste produces, only 50% is converted into cattle dung, and the remaining 50% is a important cause of water contamination and lead to different type of diseases to the person who consuming this contaminated water. So first we will start our discussion, that is what is zoonosis. The term zoonosis is coined by the scientist Rodolphe Virchow. Zoonosis come from the two words. Zoon means animal and nosis means diseases. So zoonosis is a type of diseases and infection that transmitted naturally between the vertebrate animals and the human. Why the discussion on zoonosis is important? On an average, 61% of human pathogens are zoonotic in nature, and about 64% of infectious agents that is identified between the year 1973 to 94 are zoonotic in nature. About the 50% emerging diseases, infectious disease, zoonotic in origin. And among the all, India has the top list country worst affected by the zoonotic disease, with the widespread illness and death followed by Ethiopia, Nigeria and Tanzania. Global study mapping human animal diseases has pinpointed 13 unlucky zoonoses that are responsible for 2.4 billion cases of human illness and about 2.2 million of death per year. So because of that reason, there is a need of requirement for discussion of the different zoonoses that is spread by the animal waste. What are the different ways through which these zoonoses are transmitted? The transmission of zoonoses through the animal waste occur mainly through the direct contact, as you can see. However, there is also the transmission of diseases from animal to animal occur through indirect contamination. For that, animal waste like feces, urine and different type of body secretion serve as a pathway for transmission of different zoonotic agents like bacteria, viruses and the parasites and fungi. So here we can see how the transmission of zoonotic agent through the different animal waste occur. If we consider the transmission of zoonotic by the contaminated water, first the animal waste is voided during the grazing time in the agriculture field. When this waste is come in contact with the water converted into slurry that can easily move, and through the movement it reaches to the different water sources, and the some part also reaches to the groundwater. If this contamination of the waste to the water depend upon how much manure is applied, the time of application before the application, and the proximity of the different water sources and the amount of water falling in that particular area, all these factors all together determine the amount and the rate of transmission of different zoonotic agent via different livestock waste. So first we start our discussion that is how the different animal waste act as a agent for transmission of genetic disease. First and most important is the direct contamination, direct transfer. Person the who are handling the animal waste are mainly farmer and vegetarian, and also the worker who are working in the slaughterhouse always come in direct contact with the animal waste like feces and urine. If this material contain the pathogenic agent, these are transferred to the handler via the abrasion of skin or mucous membrane of eye and mouth. Direct transmission of these agents also occur to the worker who handling the animal wedding that contaminated by the different zoonotic agents. The second way of transmission of this zoonotic agent via animal waste is the inhalation and aerosol transmission. The zoonotic pathogen in the animal waste can become aerosolized when animal waste are handled or left to decompose. Inhalation of these aerosolized particle lead to the different respiratory infection. Example of the zoonotic disease that is transmitted by the inhalation hantavirus disease that is mainly transferred through the waste of rodents, and the Q fever that is transmitted through the waste of cattle, sheep and goat. Normally under the dry condition, dust particle contain the feces, urine and the saliva of the saliva that can spread the pathogens like the psittacosis, mainly from the dropping of the birds, mainly the pigeon, and cryptosporidiosis, that is the one type of parasitic zoonosis. Now, in the continuation with the transmission of zoonosis via the inhalation way through aerosolized way, two important zoonotic diseases that is prevalent in our Indian condition is the avian influenza. Avian influenza strain H5H1 is a zoonotic disease that is transmitted from the infected bird to the human via the respiratory droplets mainly. And the second important disease that is transmitted through the inhalation is the tuberculosis. Although tuberculosis is the mainly a disease transmitted between human to human, but the certain strain of tuberculosis like the bovine tuberculosis that is caused by the Mycobacterium bovis is transmitted from infected animal to human via inhalation. Bovine TB is typically transmitted to human through the inhalation of droplet from the infected animal's respiratory system to the person who handling or working with these animals. Third way or pathway for transmission of this zoonotic disease is through the contaminated water. Different types of animal waste contaminate the different water sources like the river, lakes and pond, particularly in the area in the rural area when sanitation is poor and infrastructure facilities not so much developed. This result into contamination of different water sources and help in the transmission of different zoonotic diseases, mainly Campylobacteriosis, Salmonella, E. coli and Giardiasis. Also during this heavy rainfall condition, a heavy amount of the animal manure flow with the rainwater and reaches to the different public water supply and contaminate that public water supply and lead to the transmission of diseases via the contaminated water. Along with the three pathways that we have discussed, consumption of contaminated food, either milk or meat, is also important route or pathway for transmission of different zoonotic diseases. For that, animal waste contaminate the surface of the meat product or dairy product during the slaughtering and milking process if the standard hygienic practices are not followed. The different diseases that are transferred by the contaminated foods are the Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, Brucella and the tuberculosis. Not only the contaminated milk and the meat, contaminated egg also act as an agent for transmission of zoonotic diseases, mainly from the feces of the poultry to the person consuming them. The diseases that is transferred through the contaminated egg is the salmonellosis. Next pathway for transmission zoonotic diseases is the vector-borne transmission. Zoonotic diseases like the West Nile virus and the leishmaniasis is transmitted by the insect like mosquito and sandfly. For that, sandfly not directly transmit the zoonotic agent from animal to human, but if animal waste are not properly handled or managed, this untreated animal waste act as a breeding place for this different type of vector and lead to the transmission of different zoonotic diseases by the way of vector. So it is considered as a vector-borne zoonotic disease. Now coming to the next pathway of transmission of zoonotic disease that come under the category of indirect transmission. Zoonotic pathogen can survive on the surface that is contaminated by the animal waste, such as the equipment, paints, footwears, clothing that is used in the daily routine farm practices. Whenever people who come in contact with this contaminated surface get exposed or come in the contact with the different zoonotic agent. Also, the soil contamination is a route for transmission, indirect transmission of zoonotic disease. In the area where animal waste is improperly managed, in that condition, pathogen can remain in the soil for longer period. And when any person doing the gardening or playing with the soil or consuming the crop grown in such contaminated soil can lead to the transmission of zoonotic diseases via the soil. So, all these come under the category of indirect transmission of the zoonotic agent from animal waste to the human populations. Now we were here start discussing about the important zoonotic disease mainly that is transmitted by the animal waste mainly in the context of our country. The first and most important is the leptospirosis. Leptospirosis, it is a bacterial borne zoonosis that are mainly transmitted by the infected urine and feces of the species like the rat, cattle, pig and dog. This disease is mainly important during the rainy season when excessive rain and flooding condition facilitate the contamination of the different water sources and the surface. Humans get infected either by the direct contact with the contaminated water or through the broken skin or mucous membrane. Leptospirosis causes a wide range of symptoms. Mainly, it appears as flu-like symptoms like severe fever, liver damage, and even death if conditions are not treated properly. Leptospirosis in India mainly a problem in area where continuous flood are coming, like the states like Kerala, Maharashtra, and the Karnataka. All these area in India are the flood prone area, so always there is an outbreak of leptospirosis. Next important zoonotic disease is the toxoplasma. It is a type of parasitic zoonotic disease caused by parasite Toxoplasma gondii. It is mainly spread through the contaminated cat feces. When cat feces contaminate the soil, it result in the transmission of this parasite to the human population. Ingestion of the contaminated food or water lead to the transmission of infection to the healthy person. This toxoplasmosis is not remain asymptomatic and is not a serious problem in the person having the good immunity condition, but it is a very serious condition mainly in the case of the pregnant women. Next important zoonotic disease is the brucellosis. It is a type of bacterial zoonosis. In India, brucellosis is primarily associated with the livestock like the cattle, buffalo, and sheep and goat. It is caused by the species Brucella. It is known with the other name like the undulant fever, Mediterranean fever, or goat fever. Now, how these bacteria transmitted to the human population? When animal excrete, the infected urine and feces may contaminate the environment, particularly area where animals are kept or handled or where waste are disposed. Humans who come in contact with this contaminated environment lead to transmission of this zoonotic agent through indirect way. The signs and symptoms of brucellosis in human almost are a flu-like symptom, such as fever, chilling, sweating, and headache. But in the chronic condition, bones and joint pain, and the some cases liver and spleen infection occur if the condition is left as such. Here you can see the seroprevalence of bovine brucellosis under the Indian condition, and its prevalence is more in the state like Punjab and Rajasthan and Maharashtra, quite average because all three states have a maximum bovine population corresponding to the maximum seroprevalence of bovine brucellosis. Next zoonotic diseases transmitted through the animal waste is cryptosporidiosis. It is a type of parasitic zoonotic diseases, and the strain that is mainly responsible is the Cryptosporidium parvum. Cryptosporidium parvum is an emerging zoonotic protozoal disease. For that, the parasite of Cryptosporidium found in the feces of infected animal, that is the cattle, sheep and goat. Human get infection when he or she come in the contact with the contaminated water. This disease can cause a severe gastrointestinal illness, especially in the children and immunocompromised people. Rate of transmission of cryptosporidium is highest in mainly in urban slum areas because of the poor sanitary conditions. Next zoonotic disease is giardiasis. It is also a type of parasitic disease, a parasitic zoonotic disease that is transmitted from the infected animal's feces to the human population through the consumption of contaminated drinking water. Now coming to the next zoonotic disease, that is the leishmaniasis. Normally there are the two forms leishmaniasis, visceral leishmaniasis and the cutaneous. The visceral one is the most common one. Leishmaniasis is a vector-borne zoonosis, as we have discussed earlier. The disease is not transmitted directly between animals to the human, but the sandfly who work as a vector for transmission do the breeding in the animal waste when it is not handled properly or it is not managed properly. Now the next zoonosis is the Campylobacteriosis. It is a type of bacterial zoonosis, and this bacteria is mainly secreted in the fishes of the poultry and also in the case of cattle. So the mode of transmission of this bacterial disease is fecal oral contamination, fecal oral route. When water contaminated by the feces of the birds, human get this infection. Zoonotic campylobacteriosis is associated with neurological disorders. Along with that, it also causes hemolytic uremic syndromes. Now, the next important zoonotic diseases, that is again a bacterial zoonosis, the E. coli. As we know, thousands of E. coli bacteria are present in the intestine of human, warm-blooded animals, and the different livestock species. All these E. coli species are not infectious, only the some strain are pathogenic. And the mode of transmission of this pathogenic strain to the human is mainly through the contaminated water. As we have discussed earlier also in this week, that because of always higher concentration of E. coli in the contaminated water, this E. coli species is mainly used as an indicator organism for the contamination. As we have told, all the strain and species of the E. coli is not infectious, one of not a pathogenic. One important strain of E. coli, that is E. coli O157 strain of E. coli bacteria that causes a severe foodborne illness in human. It is an important pathogenic zoonotic pathogen that is mainly transmitted from animal to the human by the contaminated food, water, or in some cases through the direct contact. This strain is very dangerous. Why? Because it produces the important toxin, that is cetotoxin, which causes a serious health problem including the hemolytic uremic syndrome and may lead to the affecting the condition of kidney. Different route through which this strain is transmitted, as we have discussed, through the contaminated meat, through direct contact with animal waste, and most important through the consuming the food, fruits and vegetables that are grown by using that contaminated water or by directly applying the contaminated animal waste. So avoid the infection in human by this strain. We need a proper planning before the plantation of the crop, and we should and by proper planning we should give a minimum 3 periods month time between the incorporation of the waste and harvest of the product. When we are growing the short period crop, for that condition manure should be incorporated in the soil well before the planting. Last important zoonotic disease is the Q fever. It is also a bacterial zoonotic disease that is caused by the bacteria Coxella burnetii. The transmission of these bacteria again from animal waste to the human through the inhalation route, as we have discussed earlier. So, proper waste management and disposal of animal waste is required. Along with that, maintenance of hygienic practices is the only way to reduce the transmission of these different zoonotic diseases to the human populations. Now, what are the different factors that are contributing for transmission of this agent through the animal waste to the human population? The first and most important is the poor waste management and sanitation. In the absence of proper waste disposal system and in the absence of adequate sanitation and infrastructure facility for handling the waste lead to the transmission of important diseases like the leptospirosis and giardiasis, as we have discussed earlier. Along with that, urbanization, as day by day increasing the numbers of the animals and the humans and the demand of the animal product, animal and human are coming close together, and because of that the transmission of zoonotic agent from animal to human increases. Lack of awareness and education among the people. In the many part of India, public have limited awareness and knowledge about the different type of zoonosis, that the different type of disease can be transmitted through the animals. And along with that, the most important, the animal husbandry practices that prevailing under our condition, that is the intensive farming system, unregulated animal trading, and lack of proper veterinary care practices. All these factors are contributing the transmission of different zoonotic agents via the animal waste to the human populations. So what are the different efforts should be taken to prevent this transmission, to prevent this serious zoonosis occurrence in the human population? The first and most important is we require improve the veterinary practices, and we should give improve the public health surveillance system. For that, government along with different NGOs working to enhance the surveillance system for monitoring the different zoonotic diseases, include those diseases also that is spread via the animal waste. Because of this proper surveillance help in early detection and response, that will prevent the transmission of diseases, zoonotic agents from from animal to the human population. Next and most important is the animal waste management. While the animal waste management practices are still lacking in the many area, the effort should be promoted for the better disposal of animal waste both in urban and rural area. For that, in rural area, municipalities have been working to implement waste segregation and treatment process that will reduce the environmental burden because of animal waste. Along with that, the public health education is most important for prevention of transmission of this zoonotic disease. For that, awareness program conducted to educate the people about the risk of different zoonotic diseases that is spread via animal waste. All these programs mainly emphasize the importance of maintenance of hygiene, importance of hand washing, and encourage the wearing of protective clothing at the time of handling the animal waste. Along with that, promotion of safe animal husbandry practices. This include encouraging the use of protective equipment when handling the animal, proper method of animal carcass disposal, and regular veterinary checkup to reduce the transmission of diseases to the animal. The transmission of zoonosis can also done through the regulation. For that, government regulation are in place to reduce the transmission of zoonotic diseases like the rabies. Now, what are the different hotspots and the geographical distribution under the Indian condition? Zoonotic diseases are mainly prevalent in the rural and peri-urban area where the human and animal interaction is more, like in the state of West Bengal, Kerala, and Bihar. Also, in the flood-prone area, the distribution of this zoonosis is more, mainly for the vector-borne disease and leptospirosis, as we have discussed earlier. Along with this hotspot, the large agriculture setting where the intensive livestock farming is done that work as a hotspot for the different zoonotic diseases. What are the future challenges for control of these zoonotic diseases? Are the weak enforcement and sanitation regulation. Though we have different laws for the for preventing the transmission, but its enforcement is very weak. So there is a requirement for more strong enforcement of these laws, mainly at the local level. Infrastructure gap. Lack of proper infrastructure for handling the animal waste and treatment is the most important challenges for prevention of the zoonotic diseases. Along with that, climate changing lead to the changing the pattern of different diseases, as because of climate changes, event of flood increases and lead to the transmission of increase in incidence of the disease that transmitted by the contaminated water, like the leptospirosis. So here we can conclude that the zoonosis is transmitted through the animal waste in India continue to be an important public health concern, especially in the rural area where the sanitation is poor and infrastructure facility are very of low quality. Animal waste act as an important factor for transmission of different zoonotic diseases. By understanding the route of transmission, important effective method for control can be done. Diseases like the leptospira, brucella, and toxoplasma is of major concern under our condition because the transmission of these agents occur by the inadequate waste management, poor hygienic practices, and increased interaction between the human and the animals. For addressing the risk associated with the zoonosis, for that public health education, better waste management system, and the strong surveillance system is required. For that, one health program is most important. This program recognizes that there is an interconnection between the human, animal, and environment is the only way for the control of transmission of different zoonotic agents to the human population. Proper management of livestock waste is essential for preventing the transmission of different diseases among the animal. This include the practices such as the proper cleaning and disinfection of animal houses, proper disposal of carcasses, appropriate waste management practices, and most important, the implementation of different biosecurity measures. By applying the combination of these different practices, to a major extent, we can prevent the transmission of different zoonotic agents via the animal waste. Thank you.